In 1867, 18 years after the Hungarian Revolution, a compromise was made by Austria with Hungary to establish the dual monarchy known as Austria-Hungary. Not only that, but the Kingdom of Hungary would be separate from Austria and no longer be a subject of them. This, however, would backfire on them in the future, as any time Austria would try to pass reforms, Hungary would veto them. But what if instead of Austria-Hungary being made, the Danubian Federation was established? We'll start the scenario right after 1848 when the Hungarian rebellion is crushed. Instead of an 18-year military dictatorship over Hungary, plans and agreements are negotiated by Franz Joseph and aides to avoid a future revolution by Hungary or any other minorities. And so a federation is established alongside a constitution with a whopping 15 states. The states would be Austria, German Bohemia, German Moravia, Bohemia, Slovakia, West Galicia, East Galicia, Hungary, Secularland, Transylvania, Trentino, Venetia, Carniola or Slovenia, Croatia, and Vojvodina. The states would have to start with small autonomy at first, but as reforms pass, the autonomy they gain is significant. Each state would have its own parliament, and they would elect their government officials, manage local languages, schooling, and internal administration. Meanwhile, a Habsburg emperor would serve as the unifying figurehead of the federation, but he would have control over the military, foreign policy, and imperial finances. I can imagine that after the Danubian Federation is established, they would enter a long period of isolations, due to them having to focus fully on strengthening and structuring this new federation, but also because most European great powers would ostracize the federation due to seeing it as Austria giving up its power and losing prestige. The Federation would still have a good relationship with countries like the United States, Great Britain, and potentially France. The major powers that would be hostile to the Danubian Federation would be Russia, due to ambitions in the Balkans between both of the nations, and because Austria gave their minorities autonomy, which would worry Russia because their own minorities would want to demand something similar in the future. Prussia would also most certainly cut off Austria from German affairs. They would argue Austria chose the Danubian nations over the German nations. Austria would try to plead their case, but from now on, the Danubian Federation would no longer get involved in any affairs of the German nations. As events and years passed by, like the Franco-Prussian War, Russo-Turkish War, and Balkan Wars, the Danubian Federation watches and doesn't lift a finger. They continue building up areas of the country along with passing new military reforms and increasing relations with Great Britain and France. However, the Danubian Federation has gained many new enemies from new nations like Italy, Serbia, and Romania. In 1908, Bosnia is welcomed as a new state in the Danubian Federation after years of rule as a territory in the aftermath of the Congress of Berlin. In 1914, everyone in Europe is uneasy. There's a sense of war and nationalism in the air. They know a grand war is coming, but they don't know how it'll even start. The German Empire and Russian Empire are in the Eastern Power Alliance thanks to Bismarck's efforts decades earlier. The other major alliance in Europe is the Balkan Pact. The Balkan Pact consists of Serbia, Romania, and Montenegro. Soon there's a border skirmish in Alsace. Nobody knows who fired the first shot, but France declares war on the German Empire first. The war starts with only France and Germany, as Russia feels like its entry would be overkill, and so does the German Empire. Then Germany does something bold. They go through Belgium to circumvent France's defenses and rush to Paris, like last time in the Franco-Prussian War. However, Britain guarantees the independence of Belgium, so Great Britain enters the war on France's side, and then Russia enters the war on Germany's side. Meanwhile, in the south, Italy seizes the moment of distraction of the great powers to send an ultimatum to the Danubian Federation. Hand over Venetia, Istria, and part of Tyrol to Italy. Those lands have Italians in them, and they are rightful Italian land. The Federation refuses, as they're not intimidated by Italy. Italy declares war, and both sides quickly mobilize. It's a bloodbath for Italy, as they're fighting on unfavorable terrain, and their military leadership is a bit inept. And as the Danubian Federation's army has spent decades reorganizing their military and their tactics, Italy makes small gains in Venetia. They paid a high cost for it, unfortunately. In early 1915, Romania and Serbia then declare war on the Danubian Federation to try and get their territorial claims from the multi-ethnic state. The Serbians push into Vojvodina, and the Romanians stall in Transylvania due to the mountainous terrain and the enemy having more troops than them. The Balkan Pact and Italy try their best to stir up unrest in their claimed territories, but it's relatively unsuccessful due to the ethnic groups not feeling resentment towards the Danubian Federation because the attacking nations acted in an aggressive manner and they've been treated well. Then suddenly, Bulgaria joins the war, and within months, the surprised Romanians capitulate after losing their capital and most of their country. Soon, Serbia's on the ropes after countless offensives. Meanwhile, in the other war, the front has moved to France's disadvantage. A blockade has been imposed on Germany and Russia, and furthermore, Great Britain and France have embargoed Italy, Romania, and Serbia due to their hostile actions against the Danubian Federation. In Asia, the Entente have swayed Japan into their side. They have taken all the German colonies in Asia, and the minor offensive in Vladivostok is launched. In 1916, Serbia capitulates, and Bulgaria takes their territorial claims from Serbia and Romania in the peace treaty. Meanwhile, the Danubian Federation imposes army restrictions and reparations onto them. Now that they can go back to focusing on one front, the Danubian Federation makes offensive against Italy and manages to push them all the way back to Lombardy and Emilia-Romagna. In 1917, the United States joins the war on the side of the Entente, thanks to Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare and the Zimmermann telegram. As thousands of Americans arrive in Europe, the Germans begin to be pushed back due to low morale, war exhaustion, and massive starvation because of the blockade imposed on them. When 1918 comes around, the battered Italians sue for peace, and in the Treaty of Vienna, a DMZ is established in the north. Italian influence in Albania is severed. Heavy war reparations are to be paid to the Danubian Federation, and Italy's military might is mutilated. And the other war in the north ends around 1920 in a stalemate, although both sides claim the victory. Both sides have fought hard, but neither could prevail over the other. All German colonies are taken. France, Germany, and Russia are on the brink of revolution because hundreds of thousands have died, and for nothing. And a lot of civilians in Germany and Russia have died from starvation, and the future is uncertain for some nations, but some of them will emerge under different names and government. The Danubian Federation managed to avoid being dragged into the Great War in the north, and didn't have to experience the same horrors as the Eastern powers and Entente, but their vanquished enemies will want revenge, and democracy isn't always perfect in the multi-ethnic nation. The next time a greater war is fought, the Federation is guaranteed to be involved, for the better or for the worst. Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I apologize for the delay, I kinda just got busy IRL. But remember to like and subscribe. And again, if you have any other recommendations for a what if idea, tell me in the comments so then I can possibly feature it in a future video. Bye.